The lion. Its mane is an aphrodisiac, and its tail a weapon of war. But is the king prepared to take on every other cat on Earth?
To be the king has got to be just amazing.
Plus, the owl. It can see with its ears and may be able to hear if a mouse is pregnant. But it's their wings that could revolutionize the way all of us fly the friendly skies.
They don't make noise as they move, which is pretty cool.
And frogs. They hop, they hide, and they may just be the key to human immortality.
They are able to go into what is quite literally suspended animation.
This is where savage meets science, and wild becomes wow. This is everything you didn't know about animals. Their ancestors are millions of years older than dinosaurs. They can both drink and breathe through their skin. They're small enough to hold in your hand, but maybe use gloves, because some of them carry enough toxin to kill 20 full-grown men. They're frogs, and with over 5,000 different kinds worldwide, they're one of the most varied species on Earth.
They occupy environments ranging from the Arctic Circle all the way down to the equator. And some of them are completely terrestrial, some of them are completely aquatic. They're on the mountains, they're in valleys, they kind of do it all.
From the largest, the Goliath frog, which can weigh as much as a newborn baby, to one of the weirdest, the Suriname toad, which gives birth through holes in her back. Frogs really do run the gamut. And to prove it, we're counting down 7 of the most fascinating frogs. Starting with the northern leopard frog. If he looks familiar, it's because you may have taken a high school science class together.
Leopard frogs were the species that most people dissected because that was the species that people could get easily. So that led, especially the northern leopard frog, to become kind of the amphibian lab rat.
So why is such a well-studied frog on a show about things you didn't know? Because in late 2014, scientists revealed the discovery of an entirely new species of leopard frog, a close cousin to the northern. Most surprisingly, this new frog wasn't discovered in the jungles of Costa Rica, but somewhere much less exotic.
This new species of frog was found on Staten Island in New York. And from the site where it was found, you can see the skyline of Manhattan. That doesn't happen too often.
It's only the second new species to be found on the continental U.S. in 30 years. Scientists are calling it the Atlantic Coast leopard frog.
So even in unlikely places, we're still finding new species.
Our number 2 most fascinating amphibian is the wood frog, because it can do something that humans have only dreamed of. From Paris Hilton to Larry King and even Muhammad Ali. These are just some of the people who have dreamed of a day in which they can cheat death by cryogenically freezing their bodies for the future. For now, it remains science fiction. That is, unless you're a wood frog.
Probably one of the most remarkable frog species out there is the wood frog. It's the only amphibian that lives in the Arctic environment. Wood frogs are able to go into what is quite literally suspended animation.
To survive the deep chill of winter, wood frogs burrow under the leaf litter and then let themselves freeze.
These animals are literally able to shut down their life functions for months at a time. They pump most of the water inside their bodies into kind of interstitial spaces in their body, like lymph nodes, and then load their cells, the interior of their cells, up with glucose, which can act as antifreeze.
Doing this, some frogs can maintain a temperature of just under 5 degrees Fahrenheit. And how cold is that?
Not that I recommend this, but if you dropped it on the ground, it would shatter into a million pieces like an ice cube.
And wood frogs can stay frozen solid like this for up to 9 months.
Their heart doesn't beat, the nerves aren't firing, nothing happens for months. And then if you warm it up gently, it kind of stretches itself out and it can hop away. That's astounding for any animal to be able to do that. Maybe not surprisingly, NASA is kind of interested in this because they'd like to, you know, bottle us up, suspend our animation and send us to Mars or something.
Frog number 3 only looks like a Martian, but really, it's got nothing to hide. It's the glass frog. This is an amphibian that literally wears its heart on its sleeve. Oh, and also its liver and kidneys. But aside from telling us what the frog had for lunch, this see-through skin may help it survive.
Not only is their skin translucent, but their organs can be translucent. And that species has green bones. And so when they're up in the trees, one of the ways that they're able to match their background is by letting the background pass through their body.
So a tree snake looking up for its next meal might only see another green leaf. Frog number 4 doesn't have see-through skin and probably can't help preserve Paris Hilton's head. But its family did help launch the career of one of the greatest writers of all time. In 1865, a relatively unknown journalist wrote a short story called The Celebrated Jumping Frog of Calaveras County. The story ended up being the writer's first real success. That man was Samuel Clemens, a.k.a. Mark Twain. The subject of his story was a close relative of the American bullfrog. Like the Hopper and Twain story, the American bullfrog is in the family considered true frogs.
Bullfrogs are the largest frog that lives in North America. They can get to be over a pound or so. And they're famous for being able to jump a really, really long distance.
But how does the American bullfrog stack up against our best human long jumpers? In 1991, Mike Powell of the United States set the men's world record long jump by leaping just over 29 feet. That's nearly 5 times the length of Powell's own body. Pretty good. But is it bullfrog good? Bullfrogs have been recorded jumping over 10 times the length of their bodies. So if a bullfrog was as tall as Mike Powell, it could jump nearly 60 feet, or 1.5 school buses, double Powell's record-setting jump. Lucky for humans, frogs are banned from most track and field events. Like slimy little snowflakes, no 2 frogs are exactly alike. But all frogs do have to eat. Some are hungrier than others. But frogs don't have big teeth to chew their food into bite-sized chunks, so they have to swallow their prey whole. And that can be easier said than done. Can you guess the unusual way frogs get food from their throats to their stomachs? Do they A, push it down with their arms, B, push it down with their eyes, or C, expand their stomachs into their throats? Plus, find out how one frog's feet can help save lives on the highway. Frog. frogs. They can flip food up to 3 times their own weight right into their mouths, faster than you can blink. But swallowing prey whole isn't easy. Before the break, we asked if you could guess the unusual way in which frogs get food from their throats to their stomachs. Do they A, push it down with their arms, B, push it down with their eyes, or C, expand their stomachs into their throats? Hard as it might be to swallow, the eyes have it. The answer is B. Here's how it works.
A frog has nice big eyes that sit up in that Kermit kind of way, and those eyes can move up and down into their sockets.
At the bottom of each eye socket is a thin muscle, like a hammock for the eyeball. It's strong enough to keep the eyes from falling out, but flexible enough to stretch into the mouth cavity.
If you watch a frog feed, they pull their eyes down, and by pushing their eyes down, that fills up their mouth cavity and pushes the food back into their throat.
So frogs put the eye in Heimlich. Speaking of interesting eyes, let's get back to our list of the 7 most fascinating frogs. Number 5 may just have the brightest eyes of any frog on the planet. But first, you have to find them. Say hello to the red-eyed tree frog. With a bright green body, neon orange feet, and blood-red eyes, this frog may seem like a showboater. But it's actually a master of camouflage.
They can kind of tuck their limbs in and put these membranes over their eyes that have this camouflage pattern on them. And if you put them on the right background, they can just completely disappear.
But for all tree frogs, the best strategy for escaping death is by hanging out in hard-to-reach places. And whether it's the underside of a leaf or the clear glass of an aquarium, tree frogs do have a knack for sticking around. The way they do it may have real-world implications for people. It all begins with some of the most remarkable feat in the animal kingdom. Tree frogs secrete special mucus from glands in their toe pads that can regenerate its adhesion with each step. So if the tree frog feels itself slipping, just tapping its foot a few times actually makes the stick stronger. But if you tried to do that with a piece of tape, dust would quickly build up on the surface, and the tape would lose its adhesion. So why don't tree frogs have the same problem? Only recently, researchers discovered that each time the tree frog takes a step, new mucus is secreted, while the old mucus carries away dirt and debris through microscopic channels in the frog's toe pads. The frog's feet clean themselves as they walk. Scientists at the University of Glasgow believe these self-cleaning sticky feet could provide a design for everything from self-cleaning medical bandages to no-slip tires. So soon, the streets might be a little safer, thanks to a tiny little tree frog. Unlike the red-eyed tree frog, frog number 6 prides itself on laying low. It's the Vietnamese Mossy frog. While it's actually another kind of tree frog, it spends most of its time in the water, or using its textured skin to look like the moss it's named after.
They're really good at blending into their background where they live. But it has another defense as well, and kind of a strange one. When it's threatened, it kind of rolls up into a ball. And I think it's the only frog that's known to do something like that.
When its camo fails, this frog rolls up and plays dead, like an amphibious armadillo mixed with a mossy possum. But our final frog isn't the playing dead kind. Setting itself apart from any other amphibian on our list, some of them have the potential to kill 2 full-grown elephants with little more than a touch. These are the poison dart frogs of Central and South America.
So dart frogs get their name from a practice of using the toxin in their skin to poison tips of arrows that were used by indigenous folks to hunt.
One species, the golden dart, may just be the most poisonous animal alive. It's estimated that just 1 gram of its toxin could kill nearly 7,500 humans, roughly the population of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. But where does the dart frog's toxin come from in the first place?
The interesting thing is that the frogs don't manufacture the toxin. They eat ants that have the toxin in them, and they're able to then sequester it in their skin glands.
You are what you eat, and this frog eats death. So now you know, from frogs that save lives to those that kill.
There are no boring frogs.
It might be able to tell if a mouse is pregnant just by hearing it. One species in England can devour over 168,000 bats in a year. Its feet are stronger than a German Shepherd's bite, and its whole face is an ear. All this and its wings may be the future of human flight. Heads up, the owl is coming. It can hear a mouse's footsteps from a quarter-mile away. Its razor-sharp talons can crush prey with more force than a German Shepherd's bite. They're one of the oldest modern birds, and were once so big, even people had to watch their backs. They're silent. They're deadly. They're owls, one of the world's most perfect predators.
They are the nighttime aerial predator. I mean, they have taken over the niche of being the demon at night.
Here are just some of the numbers for how many animals a single owl can eat in a year. 1,000 voles, 200 rats, 1,600 lemmings, 53 pounds of gopher, and up to 4,000 mice. That's 38 times more meat every week than killed by your average cat. Owls really are some of the most efficient killing machines out there. And to prove it, we're breaking down all the parts of an owl that make it so deadly. How does the perfect predator do it? By being the quietest bird on Earth.
The primary ammo that an owl uses in capturing their prey is stealth.
And the secret to that stealth is in the feathers on the owl's wings. The leading edge of the wing's primary feathers are lined with little combs that break up air turbulence flowing over the wings into smaller, quieter currents, like turning a raging river into silent streams. Those streams are then turned into trickles by flexible scarf-like fringes on the trailing end of the owl's primary and secondary feathers. Lastly, the entire wing is covered in a soft carpet of fluffy tertiary feathers that absorb sound like the foam acoustic walls of a recording studio.
So what happens is when an owl flies, instead of the air going quickly over the wing, it gets broken up and you don't get that whooshing sound that you get with other birds.
NASA is even experimenting with the owl's fringe-like trailing feathers to create a similar edge on airplane wings that can make them up to 10 times quieter. Quieter planes means airlines don't have to worry about noise restrictions, which means they can schedule more flights and increase their profits. Of course, you just know the owl will never see a dime of that money. If you want to know how an owl hears, ignore those tufts on top of its head. Those aren't ears, but pretty much everything below them is. An owl's rounded facial disc funnels and collects sound just like cupping your hand over your ear helps you. So really, an owl's whole face is like an ear. And it allows the owl to pick up even the tiniest sounds from nearly 1,000 feet. That's up to 3 football fields away. But when food is out of sight, the owl employs its next deadly technique, using its ears to see what can't be seen. Take this mouse, feeling very safe under 3 feet of snow, invisible to predators. Or so it thinks. Just one rustle, and the predator is activated. A specialized portion of the owl's brain instantly creates a mental map of where the mouse is in space, and maybe even finer details, like if it's pregnant. That's right. For a rodent, 2 pink lines could mean you're dead.
Barn owl's preferred prey are pregnant rodents.
But how does this aerial terminator do it? Under the feathers on an owl's face, you'll see that its ears are lopsided. This gives the owl an ear up on the rest of us.
Owls' ears are offset. So essentially, owls can hear in 3D. They're able to essentially kind of triangulate exactly where that noise is coming from, how far away it is, and how far down it is.
All of those directional signals then combine in the owl's medulla to form one big 3-dimensional image of exactly where the sound is coming from and what's around it, without ever using the eyes.
They're seen, with their ears.
One study even found that some owls can determine the direction and distance of some small prey in just 1/100th of a second. That's 10 times faster than one flap of a hummingbird's wing. Look into an owl's eyes, and what do you see?
Owls are supposedly wise, right? The wise old owl. And they are associated with the goddess Athena, and who is also the goddess of wisdom. So the question is, how smart are owls? And the answer is not terribly smart.
They have a very small brain compared to the size of their body.
But the thing is, they don't have to be smart because they're very good at what they do.
So maybe those eyes aren't so wise, but when it comes to spotting prey, they're more advanced than ours. If we see in standard depth, they see in IMAX. Some owls' eyes make up 30% of the weight of their entire head. Human eyes, just 1%. That gives them more room for muscles inside their eyes, which allows for faster focusing and a higher kill rate. But that's not the only way their eyes have ours beat. They also see much better in the dark, and one of the reasons why is because their eyes are shaped very differently than our own. Can you guess what unusual shape the eyes of owls most resemble? Is it A, a pear, B, an oval, or C, a dumbbell? Plus, could an owl ever pick up a person?
I mean, it would be a predator of humans, most definitely.
In 2012, a blind screech owl was rescued in California. And when it opened its eyes, rescuers saw what looked like the starry night sky looking back at them. But even less celestial owls have pretty unusual eyes. Before the break, we asked you to guess what unique shape the owl's eyes most resemble. Is it A, a pear, B, an oval, or C, a dumbbell? The answer?
When we look at an owl's eye, all we're seeing is just the very surface of it, and they're round. But actually, when you take them out, they're more pear-shaped.
The owl's eye balls aren't round at all. But while this might seem odd to us ball-eyed traditionalists, it actually helps the owl hunt prey in near total darkness. Here's how it works. The back of your eye is like a movie screen. The bigger the screen, the more light you take in, and the better you can see in the dark. The owl screens are huge, and it's all because of that unusual pear shape.
They get larger as they go back into the skull, creating the larger retinal area. So on owls, it's receiving more light and images.
With its giant screens, the owl can see up to 100 times better in the dark than we can. Maybe even better than any animal on Earth. Definitely better than a mouse. The killing fields of some owls can be up to 2 square miles, or 1,280 acres. In some fields, there can be as many as 200 mice hiding out in any 1 acre. That's 256,000 mice per owl. A lot to keep track of. But to ensure no delicious morsel sneaks away behind the owl's back, it has yet another secret weapon. The owl has eyes in the back of its head. Okay, maybe not literally, but with its famously flexible neck, it can seem like it.
Dramatic turning of the head is a very characteristic feature of owls.
An owl can rotate his head 280 degrees. They also can flip their head backwards and turn it upside down. Yeah.
That's bad news for mice in all directions. The question is, how can anything have such a killer range of neck motion without killing itself? First, the owl has 14 vertebrae in its neck, 2 times more than even the tallest giraffe. That long spine gives them a more flexible range of movement than most mammals. If a human tried to rotate his head 280 degrees, he'd pinch the arteries in his neck, and it would be lights out. But unlike us, owls have extra wide canals in their vertebrae, up to 10 times wider than the artery itself.
So when they rotate their neck, it gives more room for the circulatory system going to the brain.
And just in case the blood flow is cut off, owls have special pools of blood at the base of their skulls. It's like their brains have their own backup generators. There was once an ancient barn owl that stood 5 feet tall and had a 12-foot wingspan. Its name was Tyto gigantea.
That'd be a little scary to see a 5-foot owl. That would be quite a predator. It would be a predator of humans, most definitely of something of that size.
But modern owls are still plenty deadly. And if there's any doubt, witness the talons that automatically crush bones on impact. The feet of an owl are remarkably powerful.
Unlike other birds that typically have 3 toes forward and 1 toe back, owls have 2 toes forward and 2 toes back. And that gives them a larger surface area and more pressure per square inch to be able to capture their prey.
As for how the owl lands those talons with such precision, the owl can actually hang and pivot in the air like a gymnast on the rings. This silent hang time allows the owl to position its feet just right, and from there, most mice are dead before they even know what hit them. After the hunt, it's time to eat, but some prey can be hard to swallow.
The owls have 2 stomachs. The second stomach is more like a garbage compactor. It squeezes out all the soft tissue, and all that's left in there is the hair and the feathers and the bones of what the owl has eaten.
Whatever's left comes up the way it went down. The only evidence this perfect predator was ever here. Their roars can be heard by other lions from more than 30 miles away. But if there's any weakness in that roar, they're dead. When they're trying to kill, they can leap farther than 4 smart cars lined up end to end. And when it comes to mating, the darker the mane, the more tail you get. All this, and it's also grossed $6.2 billion on Broadway. It's The Lion. Next. The cheetah. It can go from 0 to 60 2 times faster than a Porsche 944 Turbo. And yet, no one calls the cheetah king. The tiger. The biggest of all the cats, with the strength to single-handedly take down a 2,000-pound buffalo. But no one calls him the king either. Even the jaguar, with a bite strong enough to pierce a bowling ball, has never been elevated to the regal status of king. There is only one cat with the power and presence to earn that title. This is the lion, the true king of cats. But if it's not the fastest or the strongest, what is it that makes the lion so king-worthy? To find out, we're about to explore all the ways the lion beats the rest to gain its royal status. And the coronation begins with the one thing lions have above all other cats, their own crown. Behold, the lion's mane.
The true dark-haired maned lions are these males that are in peak prime of their life and have never lost a fight. Those are the ones that the females just think are irresistible, which I think is great.
The darker the mane, the more testosterone in the male. It's like an advertisement for the ladies.
Once a male has lost a fight, truly lost a fight, probably due to stress, he loses most of his mane. And then the mane grows back lighter.
So the females can actually tell if the male has ever lost a battle just by the color of his mane. And since they don't want any weaklings fathering their cubs, this is one case where blondes don't have more fun. For the next 3 to 4 days, the lion and his queens will mate every 12 to 15 minutes, over 40 times a day. It's estimated that for every cub that lives to be 1 year old, the male and female will have mated 3,000 times. It's good to be the king. From the ancient cave lions of Europe to the American lion, which at 1,100 pounds was the biggest cat to ever live. These kings were, at one time, the most widely distributed felines on Earth, more than any other mammal except humans. Today, the lion fights for territory just as fiercely as any other cat. But unlike, say, the cheetah, this king builds its castle walls with a roar as loud as a plane's engine. It's 25 times louder than a lawnmower, can last up to a minute long, and can be heard by humans from 5 miles away. That's nearly a mile longer than the entire Vegas Strip. And there's a reason that roar has such resonance. Unlike humans, the lion can raise and lower its voice box like a trombone slide. The lower the larynx, the deeper the roar. And new research shows the roar's actually coming out in 3-dimensional surround sound, like a dome around his kingdom.
Everywhere is just completely engulfed in this noise.
It's a marvel of communication. Depending on the positioning of the lion's larynx and the frequency of its roar, other lions may be able to tell everything from a challenger's age, health, and even its ability to defend itself. Even more amazing, that message may have a wider reach than we previously thought.
Some of the new research done in northern Namibia along the Skeleton Coast, there were 2 GPS collars on adult male territorial lions, and one lion roared, and another lion was over 35 miles away. And as soon as that lion roared, the other lion perked its head up and just made a beeline towards that lion, and then they proceeded to have this tremendous fight.
So not only did the second lion hear the sound of the first lion's roar from 35 miles away, but was also able to detect some weakened frequency in the original lion's roar that let him know he could take him.
That lion ultimately ended up winning that fight.
Tigers have certainly seen their fair share of the spotlight. But of all the animals in the wild, the lion seems to be the one most represented in pop culture. Google lions in movies, and you'll get over 53 million results. Tigers, a measly 35 million. So maybe one reason the lion is considered the king is because he's got a good PR team. For over 90 years, MGM has been using the lion to open most of its movies. What some consider to be the first known programmable computer in the world, dating back over 500 years, was Leonardo da Vinci's Robot of a Lion. Over 40 sports teams on 6 continents have named their teams after the lion. The stage show of The Lion King has, to date, made over $6.2 billion, the highest gross of any work in any media in entertainment history. As fierce as the king of beasts can be, there's a surprisingly small animal in Africa that has been known to pose a big-time threat to lionkind. Is it A, the baboon tarantula, B, porcupines, or C, the army ant? Plus, better killing through cuddling? Don't look now, but there's a lion looking down on you. Up in the night sky, next to the Big Dipper, you'll find Leo, one of the most recognized constellations, first identified as far back as 4000 BC. No other cat, except the lynx, has its own constellation. So even back then, we knew the lion was king. But even kings have to watch their backs, and sometimes threats come from the most surprising places. Before the break, we asked you which small animal can pose a big threat to lions. Is it A, the baboon tarantula, B, porcupines, or C, the army ant? Point of fact, the answer is B, the porcupine. Sometimes, curious lions will try to make porcupines a meal. And quills can get stuck in their jaws.
So that porcupine quill kind of festers, often gets infected, leads to this debilitating injury.
With their jaws injured, they don't have the strength to bite into normal prey.
Many of the animals that actually become man-eaters have porcupine quills in them. So they go after this really slow bipedal animal. You know, humans, if there's nothing else around, then we'll do.
Of all 36 species of felines on Earth, lions are the only true social cats. And it's not just because they like each other's company.
For African lions, the #1 cause of death is other lions. A male lion needs to have a lot of friends if it's going to defend its territory against other males.
To stay on his throne, the king must also be a politician, cementing its social bonds.
And the way they do that, according to some research, is what I like to call tactical cuddling. Lions will rub their heads against other lions' heads, and they'll also lick each other. And this isn't just because it feels good. It actually appears to be more like the way grooming in primates works, which is that these interactions are meant to create and maintain social relationships.
And that's what really sets the lion apart from all other cats. It's also what makes the king one of the most successful predators in the world. All cats hunt, but with the force of the pride, the lion has a distinct advantage. They can coordinate their attacks. In most cases, the king hangs back to protect the territory, while his queens do most of the work.
They're the ambush hunters. They're laying there, waiting, and then as soon as the prey gets close,
The lion reaches a top speed of 50 miles per hour, twice the speed of a cyclist in the Tour de France, yet still 10 miles per hour slower than the fastest cheetah. But the lion has both speed and synergy. The hunters can use their tails as turn signals. A twitch to the right, and the whole pride pivots. And here's something else you won't see in most cats.
So lions have very distinctive roles often in hunts, and usually that same lion will have that same position every single time they're hunting. It's similar to like rugby players. And so you'll have the wings, and these are the runners. They initiate the attacks, and they'll run the prey into the center. In the center, those are the animals that will grapple and physically attack the prey.
Then, when the time is right, the center lion pounces. At full speed, it leaps up to 12 feet high, 4 feet taller than the tallest man who's ever lived. That jump can span a distance of 36 feet, the length of 4 smart cars end to end. Finally, the claws come out. A 400-pound female flying through the air, top speed of 50 miles per hour, can hit with more force than a car crash. Prey caught in this furry missile's trajectory don't stand a chance. With a measured bite force of around 2,000 newtons, it's still weaker than a tiger. But the solo hunting tiger only has one mouth. The lion has a whole pride's worth. So what really sets the lion apart? Strategy, coordination, and above all else, numbers. That's what makes it the king of the jungle. Except there's just one thing. Lions don't live in jungles.
I mean, really, the king of the jungle is the tigers. So, I don't know where that phrase came from. I guess if you have a pride of 20 lions, I mean, you can do anything you want.